Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 5 verse 1 through chapter 7 verse 17. Now, the Philistines had captured the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. The Philistines took the ark of God and brought it into the temple of Dagon, where they positioned it beside Dagon. When the residents of Ashdod got up early the next day, Dagon was lying on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and set him back in his place. But when they got up early the following day, Dagon was again lying on the ground before the ark of the Lord. The head of Dagon and his 2 hands were sheared off and were lying at the threshold. Only Dagon's body was left intact. For this reason, to this very day, neither Dagon's priests nor anyone else who enters Dagon's temple steps on Dagon's threshold in Ashdod. The Lord attacked the residents of Ashdod severely, bringing devastation on them. He struck the people of both Ashdod and the surrounding areas with sores. When the people of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, "The ark of the God of Israel should not remain with us, for he has attacked both us and our god Dagon." So they assembled all the leaders of the Philistines and asked, "What should we do with the ark of the God of Israel?" They replied, "The ark of the God of Israel should be moved to Gath." So they moved the ark of the God of Israel. But after it had been moved, the Lord attacked that city as well, causing a great deal of panic. He struck all the people of that city with sores. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. But when the ark of God arrived at Ekron, the residents of Ekron cried out, saying, "They have brought the ark of the God of Israel here to kill our people." So they assembled all the leaders of the Philistines and said, "Get the ark of the God of Israel out of here. Let it go back to its own place, so that it won't kill us and our people." The terror of death was throughout the entire city. God was attacking them very severely there. The people who did not die were struck with sores. The city's cry for help went all the way up to heaven. When the ark of the Lord had been in the land of the Philistines for 7 months, the Philistines called the priests and the omen readers, saying, "What should we do with the ark of the Lord? Advise us as to how we should send it back to its place." They replied, "If you are going to send the ark of the God of Israel back, don't send it away empty. Be sure to return it with a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and you will understand why his hand has not removed from you." They inquired, "What is the guilt offering that we should send to him?" They replied, "The Philistine leaders, number 5. So send 5 gold sores and 5 gold mice, for it is the same plague that has afflicted both you and your leaders. You should make images of the sores and images of the mice that are destroying the land. You should honor the God of Israel. Perhaps he will release his grip on you, your gods, and your land. Why harden your hearts like the Egyptians and Pharaoh did? When God treated them harshly, didn't the Egyptians send the Israelites on their way? So now go and make a new cart. Get 2 cows that have calves and that have never had a yoke placed on them. Harness the cows to the cart and take their calves from them back to their stalls. Then take the ark of the Lord and place it on the cart and put in a chest beside it the gold objects you are sending to him as a guilt offering. You should then send it on its way, but keep an eye on it. If it should go up by the way of its own border to Beth Shemesh, then he has brought this great calamity on us. But if that is not the case, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us. Rather, it just happened to us by accident." So the men did as instructed. They took 2 cows that had calves and harnessed them to a cart. They also removed their calves to their stalls. They put the ark of the Lord on the cart, along with the chest, the gold mice, and the images of the sores. Then the cows went directly on the road to Beth Shemesh. They went along mooing as they went. They turned neither to the right nor to the left. The leaders of the Philistines were walking along behind them all the way to the border of Beth Shemesh. Now the residents of Beth Shemesh were harvesting wheat in the valley. When they looked up and saw the ark, they were pleased at the sight. The cart was coming to the field of Joshua, who was from Beth Shemesh. It paused there near a big stone. Then they cut up the wood of the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the chest that was with it, which contained the gold objects. They placed them near the big stone. At that time the people of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and made sacrifices to the Lord. The 5 leaders of the Philistines watched what was happening and then returned to Ekron on that same day. These are the gold swords that the Philistines brought as a guilt offering to the Lord, one for each of the following cities: Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. The gold mice corresponded in number to all the Philistine cities of the 5 leaders, from the fortified cities to hamlet villages, to Greater Abel, where they positioned the ark of the Lord until this very day, in the field of Joshua, who was from Beth Shemesh. But the Lord struck down some of the people of Beth Shemesh, because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. He struck down 50,000, 70 of the men. The people grieved because the Lord had struck the people with a hard blow. The residents of Beth Shemesh asked, "Who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? To whom will the ark go up from here?" So they sent messengers to the residents of Kiriath-Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down here and take it back home with you." Then the people of Kiriath-Jearim came and took the ark of the Lord. They brought it to the house of Abinadab, located on the hill. They consecrated Eleazar his son to guard the ark of the Lord. It was quite a long time, some 20 years in all, that the ark stayed at Kiriath-Jearim. All the people of Israel longed for the Lord. Samuel said to all the people of Israel, "If you are really turning to the Lord with all your hearts, remove from among you the foreign gods and the images of Ashtaroth. Give your hearts to the Lord and serve only him. Then he will deliver you from the hands of the Philistines." So the Israelites removed the Baals and the images of Ashtaroth. They served only the Lord. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord on your behalf." After they had assembled at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. They fasted on that day, and they confessed there, "We have sinned against the Lord." So Samuel led the people of Israel at Mizpah. When the Philistines heard the Israelites had gathered at Mizpah, the leaders of the Philistines went up against Israel. When the Israelites heard about this, they were afraid of the Philistines. The Israelites said to Samuel, "Keep crying out to the Lord our God, so that he may save us from the hand of the Philistines." So Samuel took a nursing lamb and offered it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. Samuel cried out to the Lord on Israel's behalf, and the Lord answered him. As Samuel was offering burnt offerings, the Philistines approached to do battle with Israel. But on that day the Lord thundered loudly against the Philistines. He caused them to panic, and they were defeated by Israel. Then the men of Israel left Mizpah and chased the Philistines, striking them down all the way to an area below Beth-kar. Samuel took a stone and placed it between Mizpah and Shen. He named it Ebenezer, saying, "Up to here the Lord has helped us." So the Philistines were defeated. They did not invade Israel again. The hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities that the Philistines had captured from Israel were returned to Israel, from Ekron to Gath. Israel also delivered their territory from the control of the Philistines. There was also peace between Israel and the Amorites. So Samuel led Israel all the days of his life. Year after year he used to travel the circuit of Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah. He used to judge Israel in all of these places. Then he would return to Ramah, because his home was there. He also judged Israel there and built an altar to the Lord there. So, after the Israelites lost the Ark of God by using it as a good luck charm in their battle against the Philistines brought it to Ashdod and put it in the temple of their god. Unfortunately, their god kept falling down prone in front of the Ark of Israel, and day after day, and his head and his feet were cut off and landed on like the threshold. So they developed a new superstition about standing on the threshold because their god was touching it. So they move the Ark of God from city to city because the people were affected with sores, it says in the NET. I think they call them ulcers in different translations. Or tumors. Yeah, that's it. So that's not great. I think I read that there was some commentary that this was severe, like prolapses or something like that, and that the mice were so severe that they would chew on the prolapses. So you've got that particular mental image of what was going on to the Philistines. So that would be understandable why they wanted to get the Ark of God out of there. Yeah, and it's interesting to me that all the surrounding people seem to know Israel's history. That is, that when they're like, okay, let's get the Ark of God out of here. Okay, how should we do it? Take these 2 cows that have calves and put the Ark of God on a cart behind these cows, and also offer an offering of tumors and golden rats. And during that time, they mention the Exodus. That is, why harden your hearts like the Egyptians did, and just send it back? Didn't they send it? Didn't they send the Israelites away themselves? Yeah. So interesting that the Lord's renown has made a mark on the people there. Yeah, and also the manner in which these the ark and the gift get returned was a way of determining if this was by chance, because they hooked up 2 cows that had calves to a cart, and if you don't realize how miraculous this is, that it goes straight on the way. If you don't teach animals to do things, they generally don't do them, especially like nursing mother cows. If you put a nursing mother's calf in a stall, then the nursing mother cow will stand outside the stall and go moo, moo, moo. She won't go in a straight line with another cow to a different place away from her calf. So this was stacked against the ark going back to Israel. Yeah. And then you have the Levites. Well, the when they go back to Israel, the people of Beth Shemesh take this cart down and take the ark off the cart and burn the cart and as a sacrifice, and everybody is looking into the ark and just like in contrast to their enemies who know the history of the Israelites don't even know this command not to look into the ark, or they don't care. And to that end, 50,070 men are struck down. Interestingly, though, in Guzik's commentary, he says the manuscript evidence is pretty clear that the number recorded originally in the text was 70, not 50,070. 70 men dead in such an incident is still a great slaughter. Basically, the Hebrew grammar can mean that out of 50,000 men, God struck 70 of them. We cannot come to any other conclusion than that the number 50,000 is neither correct nor genuine, but a gloss. That is a marginal note which has crept into the text through some oversight. Interesting. Yeah, and then you also have Samuel, who says, turn from your wickedness, guys. Turn from the idolatry. And surprisingly, they do. They throw away the Baals and the Ashtaroth, and God miraculously delivers them from the Philistines by thundering loudly when they were going to attack where they were sacrificing, and all the Philistines run away. So, pretty cool. Carrying on. John chapter 6, verses 1 through 21. After this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd was following him because they were observing the miraculous signs he was performing on the sick. So Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Jewish feast of Passover was near. Then Jesus, when he looked up and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, said to Philip, "Where can we buy bread so that these people may eat?" Now Jesus said this to test him, for he knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, 200 silver coins worth of bread would not be enough for them, for each one to get a little. One of Jesus' disciples, Andrew, Peter's brother, said to him, "Here's a boy who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good are these for so many people?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was a lot of grass in that place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed the bread to those who were seated. He then did the same with the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were all satisfied, Jesus said to his disciples, "Gather up the broken pieces that are left over, so that nothing is wasted." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with broken pieces from the 5 barley loaves left over by the people who had eaten. Now when the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus performed, they began to say to one another, "This is certainly the prophet who has come into the world." Then Jesus, because he knew they were going to come and seize him by force to make him king, withdrew again up the mountainside alone. Now when evening came, his disciples went down to the lake, got into a boat, and started to cross the lake to Capernaum. It had already become dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. By now a strong wind was blowing, and the sea was getting rough. Then, when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they caught sight of Jesus walking on the lake, approaching the boat, and they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat came to land where they had been heading. So you have here the feeding of a large crowd of people, the 5,000, and Jesus walking on water. And the people said, "This is certainly the prophet who has come into the world." Now, back in Deuteronomy, I think 18:18, but I'm not sure. Back in Deuteronomy, it's promised to Israel that there would be another prophet that would come in the same way that Moses came. That is, and Jesus certainly fits that that method, because Moses had a face-to-face relationship with God, just as Jesus has, because he is God. You also had Moses having divine power to calm the winds and the waves to control the sea, that is, the splitting of the Red Sea, and that is the giving of water to the people when they're in the desert. So too, Jesus exercises miraculous power in calming the wind and the waves and walking on the water. And just as Moses had the provision from heaven, that is manna, so too Jesus fed the 5,000 and other crowds as well. So that's what it meant. That's what it's meant. That is what is meant by "this is certainly the prophet who is to come into the world." And the Jews had thought that this prophet would assume military control and help save them from the Romans at the time, but that wasn't Jesus's plan. So Carrying on, Psalm 106, verses 13 through 31. They quickly forgot what he had done. They did not wait for his instructions. In the wilderness, they had an insatiable craving for meat. They challenged God in the desert. He granted their request, then struck them with a disease. In the camp, they resented Moses and Aaron, the Lord's holy priest. The earth opened up and swallowed Dathan. It engulfed the group led by Abiram. Fire burned their group. The flames scorched the wicked. They made an idol of a calf at Horeb, and worshipped a metal idol. They traded their majestic God for the image of an ox that eats grass. They rejected the God who delivered them, the one who performed great deeds in Egypt, amazing feats in the land of Ham, mighty acts by the Red Sea. He threatened to destroy them, but Moses, his chosen one, interceded with him and turned back his destructive anger. They rejected the fruitful land. They did not believe his promise. They grumbled in their tents. They did not obey the Lord. So he made a solemn vow that he would make them die in the desert, make their descendants die among the nations, and scattered them among foreign lands. They worshipped Baal of Peor, and ate sacrifices offered to the dead. They made the Lord angry by their actions, and a plague broke out among them. Phinehas took a stand and intervened, and the plague subsided. This brought him a reward, an eternal gift. Yeah. I would say this passage takes a lot of context to understand why God is doing these things, but essentially because of their disbelief and constant grumbling and turning back away from God, these punishments are being meted out on them, and because they're constantly disobeying God, despite his miraculous provision for them. Yeah, that is out of disbelief they ask for meat. Can God really provide meat for us here in the desert? And so he dumps a bunch of quail on them, and then a disease is manifested on them. Yeah, and I think Dathan was Aaron's son, and they maybe that offered strange fire to God, and he was engulfed essentially. Or it could also be talking about the one Levitical group that I can't remember this morning, that the earth swallowed them up because they sought to control the priesthood and seize it from Aaron and usurp Moses' authority. Also, you had the worship of the Baal of Peor, where Balaam participated in getting Israel to commit sexual sin and idolatry at the same time. And you also had even a leader of the people taking a Midianite girl into the area where the Ark of the Covenant was stored, and Phinehas ran them both through, which is what is mentioned in 106, 30, and 31. Phinehas took a stand and intervened, and the plague subsided. This brought him a reward and an eternal gift, which is interesting. Anywho, carrying on. Proverbs 14, verses 32 through 33. The wicked will be thrown down in his trouble, but the righteous have refuge even in the threat of death. Wisdom rests in the heart of the discerning. It is known even in the heart of fools. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day.